All right, Brian here, just gonna make a quick video. Not a quick video, it's actually probably gonna be a little bit longer video. But what I'm coming to you today, and I just wanna make a disclaimer, is that I try to be accurate with everything I say. Am I 100% accurate all the time? No, but I try to be the most accurate I can. I'm just a human being. I've owned this car coming up now, it'll be 5 years pretty soon. I bought it brand new. It's a 3.0T 2019 Q50 Signature Edition, rear wheel drive, and it's got the twin turbo. So I just want to bring up, and it's not that interesting of a topic, but I got 6 or 7 videos based on the catch can. And the reason why it's not that important of a topic to some people, but it is to me, because I'm a performance-minded person. I pay attention to the details. I care about performance, or at least I did. Now I'm not so into racing and chasing numbers, but I was, and I still love my car, so I want to take care of it. And I knew there was a chance that I could own this longer term. So with that said, I wanted to do my due diligence to protect the motor and keep it running the same for many, many years. But let me jump into that too, because it's not, the catch can is not going to be for everyone. And people will watch my videos and some people will get upset, or they're like, catch can doesn't do a damn thing, it's worthless, and you're BS and you're full of BS and you're pushing a lame product. But I'm going to go into some details today, and hopefully if I can remember and keep this all together, and make some evidence. Also too, a viewer pointed out, and the main goal of the video is, they pointed out that a Mishimoto catch can, or any of the knockoff catch cans with the bronze 50 micron filter, or a 40 micron filter, or a 60 micron filter, I don't know, whatever they are, that it's restrictive, meaning that if you have a catch can that's not restricted with a filter, that is way better and you're not damaging the car. But I want to argue and say, because I'm thinking logically, when you put a filter on something and you filter it, you're cutting down the flow or the ease of the flow of air through it, because you're filtering it. And depending on how much you filter it, you're always going to have a higher pressure, or a higher bar, or more restriction as you filter the air. It's like an air conditioner in your home. They have different grades of filters that you can do, and the ones that filter out more particles are going to make it more restrictive for the air to go into the intake of the air conditioner system in your home. The heater or cooler, the cooling in your home. So let's just dive into that real quick, and I'm going to open the hood. Let me start off by saying that the catch cans are not for everyone. And it just depends on what you're wanting to do and who you are. If you're a person that's leasing this car and you just want to drive this car for 3 years and turn it in, or you want to lease it for 2 years and turn it in, and you don't really care, you just want a nice vehicle to drive, catch can's not for you. You don't want a catch can. You're going to have to do things when you install a catch can that a lot of people are not going to do. Say we got 100,000 people that drive these cars just worldwide. 99,000 of them are not going to open the hood and tinker under the hood. They don't want it monthly or bi-monthly come under here and check their catch can. And I'm going to go into more detail. They don't want to check that. So manufacturers don't include a oil catch can on these cars, the high performance cars that are sold on the showroom floor, because this is something you have to maintain and you have to check. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So why would you put something on a car that people are probably going to neglect? And the same situation with the oil. A lot of people neglect their oil and will drive 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. I've even heard of people driving 50,000 miles and not changing their oil, just getting the oil topped off. So if you don't even care about changing your oil, you're not going to come under here and check your catch can, okay? All right, if you don't check your catch can and your catch can overflows, then you're going to restrict the PCV emission system, and you're going to create problems. I can't say that I've let mine overflow and I've seen the problem, and I haven't researched it, but it's going to create a blockage, and then it's going to get backed up. And then on this car, I'm going to mention what the alternative, if this gets backed up, what happens to the motor. To the best of my knowledge, what would happen and what would transpire. So that's why manufacturers, Dodge and Nissan and whoever you want to look at, Porsche and places, car manufacturers like that, they don't put an external catch can because a lot of people don't want to mess with that. It's a liability because you have to check that. So enough said about that. That's why you don't see catch cans installed on factory cars off the dealership floor. But that doesn't mean that they don't work. If we think logically about the situation, and this is to do with a catch can and coking of oil or collection of oil turns into carbon on the intake valves, it's very simple to see. And if you just think about it logically, you'll see that the catch can is going to be a benefit. So here we go. The PVC system, as I've explained, and a lot of people will know, but I'm going to be redundant. The PVC takes the compressed air from these turbos that go into the intake cylinder. It's increased. If you have a supercharger, you're actually or a high compression motor, you're forcing more air into the motor than a naturally aspirated motor. So when you do that, the piston's moving up and down and it has rings. And so some air escapes past the rings and then goes down into the bottom of the crankcase. That's pressurizing the crankcase. And so the crankcase, if you don't relieve that, then you're building up pressure, and you can create big problems if you don't release the built up pressure that happens in pretty much all motors. And so the PVC system is an emission system, EPA, stated standard, that it expels that air out of the motor to release the crankcase pressure. And so when in the process of that happening, a bunch of vapor in there gets churned up with water or moisture and oil vapor, with a 200-degree engine, and turning and violently turning. Then you get a mist of oil and other toxins that get released during combustion and moisture. And so that's coming out in your blow-by. It's called blow-by, and it's going out the PVC system. And so instead of just having a hose drip down on the ground, also there's unspent fuel vapor in there. So there's gasoline in the blow-by too as well. And that just gets dripped on the ground. That's not environmentally friendly, And so it's got to be sent back into the motor, and it's got to be disposed of properly. And so the idea is that PVC emission system takes the positive crankcase vent, takes that and puts it into the intake, and then puts it back in the cylinder and reburns it, and then that's supposed to make it go away. But the downside of that is that, the oil vapor, the moisture, the gasoline, and the toxins that get released during combustion get put back into your cylinder, and the explosion happens, and it actually degrades your fuel quality. So if you are tuned, 93 tune, or you're higher tuned than that, and when you tune, you're specifically tuning to be tighter tolerances on how the engine runs. And so if you and put more things into the fuel to degrade the octane, then your potential is you have more knock, and knock can be can be detrimental, can ruin a motor. So you don't want to degrade your fuel. Hopefully I'm coming across clearly. This is all off the top of my head, but that's the benefit of the catch can. So if a catch can or a DI motor, and this is always going to be the direct injection motors, that do this. There are multi-port and direct injection. Multi-port sprays fuel onto the backside of the valves, and that helps wash away the residue that gets sent back into the intake and goes onto the intake valve. So if you have a car that has multi-port, then it's a lot less worry. It's pretty much no worry that you're going to have intake coking or buildup on the back of your valves. But a lot of cars, because it's more performance oriented and you get better gas mileage, there's lots of advantages to a direct injection engine, is that the fuel is injected from the injectors straight into the cylinder where the explosion happens. It doesn't go pre intake valves. Not to get too confusing, but that's a big benefit to have direct injection. But there are the negative things like the valve coking, that the buildup of the oil and the carbon. The oil turns into carbon and it becomes very, very hard, and it hurts your performance of your car. It's flat out. Down the road, it'll give you, it's a slow process. It will make your car run rougher. It won't start as easily. It can affect miles per gallon, your fuel economy. It can trigger warning lights and codes in the ECU. And there's probably some other things that just not on the top of my head. But you don't want that stuff to happen at 45, 50, 60, 70,000 miles if you're going to plan on keeping the car. So the people that are buying these cars, like I mentioned earlier, buying a lease and they don't want to mess with it, they just want to drive it, catch can's not for you. If you're a person that's going to buy a used one, it's got 40,000 miles on it already, I would probably say the catch can's not going to be a big benefit to you, because I mean, as early as, like 15,000 miles on a car from brand new, a direct injection motor, you probably have a pretty substantial buildup of carbon and oil residue on the back of your valves already. So, but if you take a car and you are going to get it professionally intake valve cleaned, then I would say, well, heck yeah. I mean, if you spend that money and do that, then you're going to want to protect those valves and keep them clean, intake valves, then you're going to want to get a catch can. So, but if you're a person that doesn't want to tinker under your hood, doesn't want to worry about it, a catch can's not for you. If you're just going to buy a car 1 to 2 years and you're going to sell it or trade it, I wouldn't worry about a catch can. But if you're a performance-oriented person, then and you pay attention to the details and you want your motor to run tip-top at all times, then a oil catch can is for you. I like the Mishimoto brand. They did the research. They designed it. They do a lot of R&D in their research development department. I don't know specifically where that catch can's made. I thought it was made in the USA, but I haven't done the research and I didn't read the package 4.5 years ago when I got it to see if it's made in the USA or made in China. But there are some knockoffs which I would not buy. A viewer was like, man, why don't you just buy the $15 Amazon knockoff? And I was like, no way would I buy. I mean, I won't say I never buy anything that's a knockoff, but I know what goes into designing that and the manufacturing and all that goes into doing that. Plus, my Mishimoto catch can comes with a very expensive steel bracket, or I think it's steel. It's not aluminum, and it custom fits the can, and it custom fits in a very specific situation. The hoses are very specific length. People may not know, but the longer your hoses are to your catch can, the hot air coming out of the motor, it has more room to condense and turn more into a solid rather than a vapor, because a vapor is harder to catch than a solid. So specific length and routed hoses, and the hoses have kinks and bends in them formed from Mishimoto that help you to install this. And this is not an easy install because of how you have to run the hoses up to get to the intake. And if you didn't have those bends in those pre-made hoses, it would be near impossible almost to install on this car. That was a kit that I bought. So when I bought mine 4.5 years ago, it was $210. Now they're like $250 because everything's gone up in price. But let me address too the restriction on the catch can that one person brought up. Was like, I would never buy those. You don't want to buy those anymore because they found out that they are restrictive and it's creating problems. But yet I can't find any problems. And even though that's more restrictive than one that doesn't have a filter, who's to say, who's done the testing and who is knowledgeable enough to know that if the increase in the restriction of that is enough to cause damage to the motor, as long as there's a way for the air to vent out it doesn't have to vent out, you know, probably, you know, at a turbo speed, you know, massive amount of blowing out of, you know, like a hairdryer blowing out of the motor. So there's probably within a regards of how much restriction there can be, and I'm not one to say there is or there isn't, but some reduction in the flow of air out of the motor necessarily is not a deal killer. Mishimoto would know more about that because they specifically did the RD and all the testing, and so they're a smart company. So they would have looked into that and not be still providing, like 6 or 7 years later, a baffled catch can with a filter on it. So I would say it's safe. But what I'm going to do to help alleviate some of this problem, or the question, you know, that this man or this person raised, was if your PVC gets clogged, what happens? Well, this car has a PCV on the driver's side, and it has a crankcase vent, a CCV on the passenger side, so driver side, passenger side. If that got clogged on the driver's side, then the crankcase vent on the passenger side would take over. And from the testing that Mishimoto did when I called them and talked to their R&D department, they said that they did not see any substantial enough flow out of the crankcase vent when the positive crankcase vent is flowing correctly to need an additional catch can on this side. And that's good, because they could sell you another catch can, 2 catch cans, and charge you $350. But they told me, they go, we just didn't see a need, and we don't want to pass that charge along to the customer if it doesn't work. And I totally agree. So if that got clogged up or was too restrictive, then you know, makes sense. I mean, just think about it logically. Then the crankcase vent would start spewing out oil, and you would not have a oil catch can on this side. And so the blow-by, the oil blow-by, the gasoline, the moisture vapor would be dumped right into the below this air box, AMS air box. There's a coupler that goes down from the air box. It curves around, and the turbo sits right there. So otherwise, if that was not flowing correctly, as this person commented and said, then the crankcase vent that comes out and vents into the coupler would be coated in oil. And so I'm gonna, again, I took this apart years ago and looked in there, and I didn't see any substantial amount of residue that was anything worth worrying about as far as oil residue going into the turbo. But now I'm going to do it again for you on video and just prove that I could have oil in there and be totally shocked and be like, you were right, to that viewer. Or I could take it apart and see no oil and just say, no, I don't think so. I don't fully agree with the assessment that the filter is causing a restriction and that it's damaging the car. So let's look into that right now. If you think stuff like this is valuable and you're getting something from it, enjoyment, or technically you're getting something from it, consider giving me a like and subscribe if you want to, and check out more videos, because this stuff is not easy and it takes a long time, and I got a lot of other things that I need to do, editing images, hundreds and hundreds of images that I could be doing right now. So, but I think it's important that I make content and share stuff that we can both learn from. All right, now I'm going to pull my whatever they call this cover, lets me get to my air boxes, and then I'm going to pull this air box out. It's pretty straightforward, but it does take a lot of time to get everything off. Here's a view of my air box. See in there and see my air filter. It actually looks pretty decently clean. I haven't checked these in many months. They look pretty good. I mean, a little dirty, a little residue and stuff, but no big deal. As with everything I do, I cleaned everything. It gets really dusty and grimy. Just a motor situation. This is already clean. I have to blow this out. It's got just a bunch of, maybe some bugs and some things and some leaves and dust. And I'm gonna blow my air filter out from the inside out. Blow that out, and that'll be the maintenance for the air box while I have it apart. All right, here's the AMS coupler, the passenger side coupler. The air box mounts right here. Your mass airflow sensor goes in. Here is the CCV crankcase vent. It drops directly down in here, so it gets a vacuum pulled on it. This goes straight to the turbo. And I will stick a rag in there. This is a white cloth, so you'll see there is grime. I mean, just dirty grime that's under the hood. I mean, that'd be more concerning, that if there's, but it's not really collecting on my finger. There's just a little bit of dust. No oil residue. Shove this down where the crankcase vent goes. There's nothing to, nothing oil residue or any contaminants. There's just a little bit of dust on this side. This is the side that goes to the turbo. This is actually where the turbo connects, so there wouldn't be anything there, but just in that, I can put this little cloth. It's just some grime, just some grit and some grime. There's no oil residue, so there you go. That solves that there's no mass amount of oil going into the passenger side's turbo from the crankcase vent. Also too, if the PCV vent hose was clogged and not allowing pressure to escape, or actually putting that in, escape the crankcase, I got that right, pressure to escape the crankcase, then it would be coming out the CCV, because that's the next thing that would relieve the pressure, and I'm not getting any blow by whatsoever. I'll clean this, get it really clean while I have it out, and put it back in the car. So there we go, no oil blow by being caught in any amount in going into the turbo, passenger side turbo. It's just a tough situation. The sun shines really bright in here, and the contrast is going to probably be off, but here I've cleaned it up, put it in the bathtub, sprayed it with Simple Green, it looks brand new. Well, it's close to brand new, so it's really clean. I'm going to reinstall it, and then also too, something that I was taught as a little boy, put just a little bit of waterproof grease right around the seal where this is going to go into the air box is going to go in. Just minimal, just to make a seal, not anything that's going to overlap and get sucked into the turbos, and then just a fine film right here on that mates up to the turbo. So what we're looking at here is the entry to the turbo, where the boot, where the AMS airbox boot goes into. So I'm not going to be able to get dual hands down there to wipe that, but I'm going to take a white cloth and wipe around that and make sure there's no oil residue or anything concerning. So just hang tight while I do that. Put it back up. I think that's it right there. I've wiped quite a few things with this rag. Just a little bit of grime. I mean, it's nothing too concerning. All right, there it is, all cleaned, all put back, everything tightened. These do need a little bit of maintenance from here, I mean, every now and then. Make sure everything's tight here and here, and then the little clamp that goes down into the frame, that was loose. And blow your air filter out, just make sure everything's working good. And that's the thing about the AMS air boxes, they flow really well, but they probably let in the really fine dust. And that's what we were seeing in the airbox couplers, really fine dust. But it's all back together. Bright. We like it sunny though, instead of rainy. But hopefully this cleared up some confusion. Obviously, if the PCV was clogged and wasn't allowing enough volume out, or wasn't letting it out fast enough, or was straining the motor or causing potential damage or risk, then the CCV on the other side of the passenger side would be overflowing, taking over the PCV. It just makes sense, but it's not. So there we go. I think the Mishimoto catch can with the filter is obviously the way to go. And that's why people that are saying that they've had other catch cans and like, catch cans don't work that well. I still had oil blow by on my valves. Well, which which catch can were you using? Oh, I was using one of those China brands or an Ad W1 or there you go, there you go. So if they catch 50% of the blow by, which is catching something, but it's letting some through, you're still gonna get dirty valves. One day I would like to, but it's gonna be really, really time consuming to get a bore scope or something to go in. I mean, I don't even wanna think about it. I don't make enough money on these videos, $1 or $2 a video, if that. To go in and tear this apart and try to get a bore scope in there to look at my valves. It would be very, very interesting and helpful, but just way too much work and not enough payback. Risk, you know, that's just the way it is. But I love my Mishimoto catch can. I love the filter. I'm sticking with the 50 micron filter. And there's a video out there that shows a guy spraying through his spray gun mist and air, you know, maybe 30 psi, spraying it in there, and no moisture comes out the exhaust port on the Mishimoto. Or maybe it was a knockoff, but it has the 50 micron filter in it, and it did not allow any moisture to be sprayed out, so it caught it all. And he shows the contents of the water in it, pours it out, and shows the video where nothing's going out the port that takes it to that dumps it back into the intake right here. So there you go. Hopefully you all found this informative. It takes a lot of time and effort to do this stuff. So if you like my video, just like it, but subscribe and so I can make more content because it motivates me. All right, thanks, bye-bye.